today we have Aadhya Wije all the way from Melbourne, Australia with us. She's actually a model, actress, singer, dancer, as well as founder of Brown Paint. Say hi to Aadhya. Hi, Aadhya.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. So excited to
Great.
be here today.
We're really excited to have you here, Aadhya. And, today the entire thing is about, you know, it's amazing that you can do so many things all together. I mean, you're doing so many things, and especially during the pandemic. How has the journey been so far? Like from the time you started till here?
It's been great. I've been very blessed that the pandemic didn't even affect too much of my career, which is really, really lovely. I got to do a musical and a TV show last year in 2020. But since the very beginning, I mean, I only really started maybe 2 years ago. In 2019, I dropped out of my science degree and kind of just jumped straight into the industry, into the music theatre, TV, film, and dance industries. And it's been really lovely. I've just been so lucky in booking gigs and been working ever since. Yeah. Does that answer the
So
question?
yes. So I mean, how has work been during the pandemic? Have you been shooting or you've been at home? What has been the situation in Australia like?
Yeah, so in Melbourne, we've had like the longest running lockdown, I think, in the world. And what they've kind of tried to do is when the restrictions have eased, is sort of when we've been filming in sort of like patches and chunks and like doing, yeah. So whenever I've been doing kind of arts related work, it's always been in those little patches of restrictions easing. Yeah.
So how did you decide that you wanted to be an actress or a model? Like, when you were studying, how did you figure that you want to drop out and just do this?
Yeah, so I think I knew it all along from when I was itty bitty, maybe 3 years old. That's when I first started dancing, and my mother was actually a traditional Kandyan dancer. So that's a traditional form of dance in Sri Lanka, and it was just kind of in my blood, and I kind of grew up just dancing and singing and being very theatrical from a young age. And so I think that anyone looking into my life from an objective lens would kind of be able to look in and say that that girl is born to be an actress and born to be on stage. But of course, being from a brown family, that was something that was always looked down upon and always shunned away as something that should only be saved for as a hobby, and it shouldn't be something that you do as a career. And so from a very young age, I was told that my dreams weren't something that was worth chasing. It wasn't something that would make me smart, that I should be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. I'm sure every brown person listening to this can relate, because it's just the same old rhetoric we are all fed. From the minute we come out of our parents' wombs, we're like just pushed into this whole doctor thing. And so I followed that. I went into a science degree at Monash. I only lasted a year because I was with an agent at the time trying to do both worlds at once. And if anyone knows the hecticness of this industry that I'm in, it is not something that you can kind of side hustle your way through with something else, especially if you're studying. It's just something that's really difficult to do. And the few people that are doing it are very, very, very stressed. And the arts is something you have to emotionally give your 100% to. And so I think the moment that I realized that I wanted to drop out was actually I had my first ever music theater audition come up. And I had to be over 18 for it. So it was like one of the first big things that I was submitted for. It was West Side Story. And I had I think it was like a chemistry assignment due that day, or a prac or something that I had to show up at the university for. And I was like, West Side Story, or do I go to do the uni practical assignment thing? And I just had to choose West Side Story. Like, it was such an honor I knew that I wouldn't even get through to the next round, with it being my first ever music theater audition, but just the honor of being in that room with those incredible people, that choreographer who's from America from fresh off of Broadway, it was a dream come true. And I knew at that point I was prioritizing auditions over my assignments and my uni work. And I thought, okay, it's now or never. I just need to drop out. I did go to Monash and try and find like alternative pathways I could seek in terms of study, but none of the drama courses and things they offered were courses that would end up having me perform. Those were more like academic route courses. And so I dropped out, tried to look at other drama schools. I had missed the boat completely for applying to any of the proper drama schools. And I took that as a sign that maybe I needed a gap year to just kind of like throw myself in the industry, throw myself into my art. And it really worked out. And I've been working ever since. I never ended up studying my craft properly in a full-time course. I've done lots of private training with incredible coaches. And I've done lots of short courses since, but I just kind of went straight into working. And a lot of the work I do is more acting based. So I do a lot of television commercials. I did my first guest role on a TV show last year. And then, of course, music theatre and dance gigs, music videos, stage work, that kind of thing. So it's been a whirlwind, and I definitely copped a lot of backlash from my family, and that's a whole nother topic if you want to open it at any point of this interview. But yes, it's been a journey, and I'm finally I'm here, I'm happy, and I feel like very settled in what I'm doing and in this career.
So when we talk about stage or theater, and then TV or TV commercials, or or that aspect of it, they say that they're two different species altogether. So how did you adapt from moving from here to there, or how did that work out?
I love this question. This is such a nitty-gritty art question that you ask, because a lot of artists, like, this is a constant controversial kind of back and forth in the art community about what is acting and whether there should be like a film acting or like a theater acting, and whether those two crafts are transferable, or are they two separate things, or is it the same one craft? And my personal ethos is that acting is acting, and that good acting is transferable amongst all platforms, because as a creative, you end up doing so many different types of work. It's not a linear career path. You have to be able to be an octopus. Like, you have to be able to mold and change colors and fit into these different gigs, or else you won't have like a fulfilling colorful career with lots of opportunities. So in order to make the most of the opportunities, you have to kind of be able to do everything. And I believe that all acting is the same acting. I don't believe in this whole like yucky performative, I'm on stage now, theater jazz hands, kind of like really over the top dramatic theater acting. I think that acting should just come from a really honest place where you're naturally just empathizing someone's story, taking it in, and regurgitating it in a way that's true and honest, but also your own. And if you can access that kind of true empathy, that acting is transferable in a cheesy, I don't know, a cheesy toothpaste commercial. It'll also work for, a big movie where you're playing, I don't know, you're doing the Titanic or something, like, or you're in a musical. And good craftsmanship, craftsmanship, sorry, can't say that word, should be transferable across all gigs and all types of entertainment.
So, I mean, when you said Titanic, so let's say that you played the role of Rose. Would it affect you in your normal life as well when you go back home? Do you go with the same feeling? Or does it take a while to settle in?
Oh, you're asking such great actor questions. Yeah, it does. I've only been acting for a couple of years, and it's still something that I'm working on, in terms of trying to, having that natural empathy towards a character, but also setting boundaries of the character. That's something that they talk about a lot in acting, because when you really get into the real stuff, which is you're really like feeling the character's emotions as if they were your own, in order for it to be healthy, you need to be able to switch on and off between yourself and a character, and it's really unhealthy. And I definitely tend to be a more an empath type, so I tend to find it hard to put boundaries with myself and other people's emotions, whether that be just anyone or a character. And so I'm still learning that, but so far, I mean, I'm trying to just sort of do physical things that remind me that I'm in my body now, or I'm in my character's body. There's an exercise where you step out of the character and you physically step into your body, or you step out of your body and into the character's body, and then because you're telling your mind already knows, sorry, but you have to tell your body where it is, because your body a lot of the times doesn't know, and that's when it becomes stressful, because your body can't distinguish between what's your feelings and what's the character's feelings. So I've been doing a lot of physical work, trying to really step out and disassociate from the character when I get home, or um, emotional work, meditating, journaling, also listening to music that reminds me of feeling like myself again, music that I love, surrounding yourself with other loved ones and family and friends that can bring you back down to earth and into your reality, because it's very easy to be consumed, especially if you're an empathetic type of person.
So now you spoke about working on disassociation, but when it comes to association, there are a lot of people who talk about method acting, like they think about a situation and they relate to the character, and then they start playing on screen. I mean, it's not only about melancholy per se, but then it can be anything, even like smallest emotion. What do you think about that? Do you think method acting really puts you there, and then it's difficult to come out because
Yeah.
that's what I've heard.
Yeah, I don't agree with method acting. Some people might think that what I do is method acting, that I'm too emotionally invested in the character. But I don't think that you can act I don't think true acting, because there's a lot of fake acting out there where it's very like performative, or they're kind of pre-planning or pre-shaping a scene. And I don't think that that's honest enough. But then some people might say what I do, which is like feeling the character's emotions swell up inside me as if they were my own. That's like too honest and too true. But I think that there's a way to do this where you can have boundaries. And I don't think like that's not even method acting. Method acting takes it to a whole other extreme where you are living the character throughout your own day, and you start to intermingle the character's reality with your own reality. And that's when it gets really tough, because then when you're trying to switch off, there is no definite space where you can call your own now anymore, because it's contaminated with all these characters. And I think that that's like, it's energetically dangerous, it's emotionally dangerous, and can be really stressful to the body, because again, your mind might know that it's not in a scene right now, we're not filming, but your body doesn't know that. And as a dancer especially, I am very in tune with my body, and I understand um bodily stored stress and trauma, and how triggering that can be, and how true and real that is. Especially with the rise of therapies such as movement therapy and somatic healing and all those kind of things coming up, it's so important to disassociate. And I think that method acting, there's just no room for disassociation, and that's why I don't agree with it, because I think it's dangerous emotionally. Yeah.
So when you see yourself on screen, or maybe let's say you've just finished a scene, do you tend to criticize your work yourself? I mean, because it can be too much of criticism. Like there's nothing perfect ever for somebody who's an artist. I mean, I have a lot of friends who are artists, and there's something or the other that's amiss, and they want to go and maybe they wish to go and redo it. Does that happen with you as well?
No, actually it doesn't. It used to, but ever since I studied it with Howard Fine, who is an incredible acting coach from LA who has a studio here in Melbourne. And I did a whole bunch of his short courses last year in quarantine in 2020. And I got to work with Howard Fine himself one-on-one, which was such an amazing opportunity and privilege. Howard Fine's actually Austin Butler's acting coach, and he's currently prepping Austin for the role of Elvis, 2021's Elvis film. So
Right.
yeah, big, amazing. And he's really like, my whole ethos of acting has just completely changed and shifted ever since I met and have worked with him. And one of the things that I've really, really understood after last year is that it's not as an artist, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about the story. And I realized that back when I was doing that self-criticism thing, or seeing yourself being filmed as you're acting, or like what you look like, or oh, I don't look good in that take, or oh, that's not good, or that kind of thing, the self-criticism is really all ego. And if you are really there to tell someone else's story, that ego wouldn't come up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You shouldn't if you're really truly wanting to tell someone's story from a place that is genuine and from a place that is truly empathized, then the criticism won't be there. So if I feel like I've done a take where I've been fully in the character and invested and in the moment and present, I won't even need to look at it, because I felt that that was good. And I felt that I was in the character. Not that that was good, but I felt that I was in the moment, I was in the character. Um, the only time I'll like want another take, or I'll think it's bad, is if I wasn't really in it in that moment. So, but I never look back and criticize, because the reality is, when you're telling real people's stories, or just character stories, I mean, they're still real people, real stories aren't perfect. So why are we aiming to be perfect as artists? I don't agree with that at all. I think that if you're criticizing, then you're not trying to tell a story. You're thinking about yourself as the artist. You're not thinking about that character.
Right. So
Yeah.
now when we speak about criticism, there's another thing that can be an issue. Well, let's say you're working and you do not really get along with, let's say, the crew or the director, or someone. For example, when I'm going for a shoot, if there's no vibe between me and the photographer, a single muscle on my face won't move. Like, it's just a dull shot. So how do you go about it? Like, what are the things that you keep in mind to not get that into your work aspect of
That's
it?
yeah, I've been really lucky that most of the times, I'd want to say like 95% of the instances that I have are really good. Like, people are very respectful and collaborative and creative, and you can sort of feed back and forth with their energy and vibe it out, and it feels natural and authentic, and they give you that space to also experiment and also give direction. But there have, like, of course there are instances where, people are bossy, or they're a bit diva-esque, or they're just hard to work with, or sometimes there's nothing wrong with them and it's hard to vibe. And I think that it's about like bringing it back to, I mean, modeling is tough because it's literally just you, but definitely with acting, singing and dancing, it's a little easier, because I think you have something to like focus on, like whether that's the music or the choreography or the scene or the character. I always just tend to just hone in on that. When, if all else fails, you hone in on the story that you're trying to tell, and tell it as truly as possible. And you just have to trust that that works. And 99 times out of 100, if you just aim for telling the story, it'll always work, always, and it'll always read well on camera. The only time that is hard is if you don't feel like maybe the safe is conducive or something to tell the story. But in that case, I think that, like, artists especially, we need to speak up and ask for what we need on set. For example, like if I'm warming up and my body is just like it's too cold, the AC's on, and I'm really trying to warm up. And as long as it's not an inconvenience to other people, and I'll be polite about it. I'm not about to be a diva on set, but I'll be like, hey, can we please turn the AC off just while I'm warming up for 15 minutes? And they'll be like, oh my gosh, yes, of course. So you have to also speak up as an artist on set and like ask for what you need. If you're hungry, and this happened, like as a dancer, you're 100% giving it your all, using your energy so much, and sometimes they don't have, I don't know, food on set or something. Those are bad sets. If they don't have food on set, it's a bad set. But you have to prioritize. You have to say, look, I need to eat because I'm shutting down. My body's shutting down. So it's really important to like ask as well and make sure that the space is conducive for you to do your best work, because at the end of the day, everyone that's on set wants to make sure that we all get the best possible product. Does that
Yes.
does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's there for the same reason. Yeah.
So you said that you are a dancer as well. So what kind of dance forms are you into?
So at the moment, I'm in a contemporary company. I was also in a hip hop company, but I do all forms of dance. I studied classical ballet from when I was 3 till, yeah, pretty much when I was 18. So I've mainly trained in classical ballet and point, and then from there, I've also trained in contemporary jazz, lyrical, acro, music theater, tap, hip hop, urban, like every single style you can think of. The only thing I probably haven't tapped into or need to do more is the ballroom styles, which would be, it's a dream of mine to like have the time to just one day like take some ballroom classes. That would be so much fun. But yeah, I pretty much do every single style you can think of.
Okay, so uh, like everybody has like some sort of a remind or just something that they do to relax. Is dancing also a form of meditation for you?
100%. 100%. But this is the thing, when I entered into the industry, dancing was like my everything. So when it started to become my career and my livelihood, and like there's this new added pressure to succeed and do well and get through the auditions. So now I'm using my body as my life, right? And it's not just a hobby anymore. I found that I couldn't use it as much of as a meditation or a relaxation or outlet thing anymore, which is really sad. And it took me a while to grapple with that reality. But I kind of had to sit down with myself and go, look, like now you've turned your hobbies into your professional career. You need new hobbies. And so I have tremendously benefited from finding these new hobbies, one of which is rock climbing. I do a lot of rock climbing, bouldering, and that's like my new form of exercise and physical outlet. And rock climbing has been incredible, especially because of, if anyone's a climber listening to this, you'll know that the climbing community is a community. It's a very social sport, and I've made so many friends, and so many friends that are like outside of this creative world, which is so refreshing. And climbing is a addiction of its own. So once you start, you can't stop climbing. It's a thing. And so that's actually reinvented my relationship with dance. And so a lot of the times I do use dance as my profession, but it still allows for some time to like this morning, I felt really stressed. I woke up feeling really low energy and stressed, and I did some light contemporary style floor movement, and it really helped settle and ground my energy back into place. So the answer is no, I don't use it as meditation as much as I used to, but there's still a place for it, and there'll always be a place for it in my heart. But definitely, I do meditate and do journaling and other kind of self-care practices outside of that, because when you're using your body that much, sometimes it's too much for it to be your career, your relaxation, and your physical exercise. Like it's too much for it to be everything. So yeah, balance is the key, I think.
So, this was all about how you try and balance your life. And, this is all your inner work that you do, like self-work. Are there people outside of yourself who really help you, motivate you on a daily? day-to-day basis? I mean, you did say that, you know, your parents were completely against it, like how typical brown people are, but then who's that one person, or maybe like a few people who really support you or have supported you all throughout?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So definitely um my partner Jordan, he's been with me, like we've been together for 3 years now. So he was there before I even dropped out, and he saw the entire journey, all of the strife I went through. He saw it all, he witnessed it all, and he's witnessed my entire growth. And he's been there from day one. He's dropped me to about 100 auditions because I don't drive and he drives. So he's driven me everywhere to ridiculous places, picked me up from ridiculous spots in the middle of the night when I've been shooting, and emotionally he's been there for me. And I don't know, sometimes I don't think I would have come this far or been even doing this without him, because he was really like, it sucks to say this, but probably the only one that was there for me during this time. It was a really tough time. And even though, you know, my dad has come around and accepted what I'm doing, and he's quite proud of me now. Um, you know, I, I love my dad and we have a great relationship now and we've really worked on it. But does he support me? No. Does my family support me? No. So, and support, it's what you said, 100%. Who's been there from the beginning? And it's not that I don't hold resentment to those people, but it's just the fact of the matter. Were they there? Are they still there? No. But are they great people in my life? Yes, but not for that thing. They don't measure up in that area, but it doesn't mean I don't, it doesn't mean I completely shun them away.
Right.
But definitely, yeah, Jordan, my partner, has been there from the very beginning. And I have to say, three of my best friends, Tom, Chantel, and Arundhi, they've been there. They're always there, like always there if I'm like gonna call. And they're great because, well, Tom's actually in the industry himself. He's an amazing music theater performer, and he's the one that kind of got me in this industry. He's the one that inspired me. He's been in this industry since he was 8. So he's really helped me in terms of networking and navigating this industry, and um, figuring out, what are the right career moves, those kind of big questions. And Chantal and Arundhi are my girlfriends, so they've been just great emotional support. But yeah, definitely it's so important. If you're going to ever chase your dreams, you have to make sure that you have at least one person that's going to back you up, because if you don't, no matter how much you have in terms of willpower, it is going to be so difficult. Take my word for it. So at least one person.
So, I mean, in this entire journey of being an artist, I mean, I've seen that a lot of people do not really want to get into a relationship, like date someone during the time that they're working, or they assume that they're going to be like really famous and get to maybe date someone. I mean, I've got these things like from my friends, so they don't end up dating anyone. So, I mean, tell me, what did you do, like dating Jordan? I mean, did that come up ever?
Um, so the question is like, sorry, what was the question exactly?
The question is it difficult to maintain a relationship
Oh,
and then
yeah.
go out and see these really hot people, like really, out there, emotional, madly in love kind of characters, just there to drain you out, like, that
Well,
way.
okay. Firstly, I think it's quite a lie. And to be honest, this whole like thing of like, the thing about actors is because they're so emotionally open and available, because they have to be, that's their job. I think that that's why they're really attractive to people. It's not even necessarily that they're physically attractive. It's that emotional and energetic openness, and sense of like warmth and welcomingness. And also, like, to be an actor, you have to be really in touch with who you are as a person. So that self-confidence as well is actually what's attractive. It's not the appearance. And there are definitely some attractive people out there, but let me tell you, most of them are gay. Most of them are gay men that you wouldn't even think are gay. So I hate to burst anyone's bubble here, but if you're a gay man, you're in the right industry. But if you're just a straight woman like me, then it's actually like you're going to be disappointed at how many guys you're going to hit on, and you're going to realize that they're actually beautiful gay men. So that's one reality. So that's one myth busted. The next one is that, yeah, actually, I think that a lot of actors are, because they're emotionally open, they tend to be quite, like, they're a lot to deal with. So even when you do find the really attractive straight ones, I find that they're just, it's a lot. Like, it's a lot dating an artist, I think, in general, just a creative type in general. And if my partner was like me, I just think it'd be too much. I don't know how it would work, because creative types are very, like, they're unpredictable. Like, they swerve in different directions. They're constantly at peaks of inspiration and then at emotional downfalls. And it's a lot emotionally being with a creative type. So my advice is, if you're a creative type, it's actually probably better to find someone outside of that world that can bring you a sense of balance and groundedness. And I found that that's been the best thing about having Jordan by my side throughout this entire thing, is that he's not a part of that world at all. He can still understand how much it gives me happiness, and he can still participate within it, um in terms of, like, I can bring him to, like, industry kind of events, or, like, he can hang out with my theater friends, and he can still, like, get along with everyone. But it's refreshing coming home to someone that's away from that world and having a life outside of that. Like, for example, we love to go camping, we love to hike, we love to do adventurous things, and it's completely separate from my life as an artist. And I think that living life with especially the people that you love rejuvenates and gives you a new sense of inspiration for your art. Because I think that people that use art to circulate more art end up becoming depressed artists. So having your partner be outside of that has been, like, the best thing for me, because it's given me a whole life outside of this world, if that makes sense. He does get jealous though. Like, I'm blasting him on the internet. He does, like, I think there's a feature film thing that I might have to do. It's not announced yet, so I can't say too much, but in the next couple months, where I might have to do a sex scene, and that's something that's freaking him out. And he thinks that there are, like, these mythical dudes out there in the industry that are really hot and attractive and that are going to sweep me away off my feet. But even if there are, he's my guy, one. And two, like, it's just, I don't know. It's just, I don't think dating an actor is a good idea. Like, it's just a lot. It wouldn't work emotionally, I think. Yeah. So those myths are, like, I think they're myths. I think they're myths. Like, it's a dream that will never happen.
Right,
Is that
right. Yeah, we're not going to bash Jordan that much online. Don't worry about
I
it.
know, yeah. It's like, oh no, all the truths are coming out. No, I think it's normal though to be jealous, like, or to feel a bit insecure if your partner has to be intimate with someone else. Like, in the context of a normal relationship, when would that ever happen? If that were to happen, that would be considered cheating. But it's okay when you're an actor. So it's like you just have to deal with that, and you have to expect that your partner can deal with that. It's such a hard thing to navigate, and there's not nearly enough help or advice out there on those kind of awkward topics. But yeah.
So you said that you're kind of doing a sex scene in the feature film that you are, working on, or you've already worked on. So already being online, being available is, it's already a lot of unwanted attention at times. So how do you manage to do that scene now? And then you might get a lot of criticism for a lot of things, like body shaming. Like, you didn't kiss the guy properly. It could be anything.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The most of it's probably going to be from my family, and that's something that I'm going to have an honest conversation with them before and after it happens. And in terms of the wider community, I've learned to really not care, and that sounds really just blunt and easier said than done. But really, what other people think is their responsibility. That's a quote that I kind of made up out of nowhere, and I've lived by ever since. This kind of thing has been happening within my family, and all the backlash I received for being opinionated and expressive and becoming a brown artist. I've just learnt that other people's opinion are other people's opinions are their responsibility, and you have no control over other people's opinion. All of what you can do that is in your control is just to rock up on the day, be the best version of yourself you can be. And if people still think badly about you, then that's their problem. That's their problem to deal with. If someone thinks you're a bad singer, in their head, they're the one that's listening to the dying cat sounds. You know what I mean? I'm not listening to that. I thought that was a great take. I submitted it. Now the audition panel have to deal with my horrible notes. It's not my problem. I
Right.
submitted the. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's literally, like, it's not my problem. Like, it's actually their problem. The fact that they're thinking badly of me means that they're holding on to this emotional burden and stress. Like, that's their burden to deal with. So if I get comments, I don't know, if people talk behind my back, which there probably already are, it doesn't affect me because it's not my burden to bear. It's not my emotional burden to change their mind, because like it's not my problem, or it's not I can try so hard, and I've tried so hard to change people's minds about me, about who I am as a person, and you just can't. And if they still think badly of you, then it's their loss. They've lost out on meeting a lovely person.
Right. Okay, so that was a lot about acting that we covered today.
So sorry.
Yeah, that was a lot. So let's talk about brown paint. I mean, it's your baby, and I see that you've been doing a lot of work there. Besides, juggling with acting, modeling, dancing. So what is it like? I mean, tell us about brown paint, and then we from there.
Yeah, so brown paint basically was born out of my passion for South Asian artists, and being in the audition rooms and sadly seeing that there's not nearly enough of us about. And I kind of thought, if I went through this crazy amount of intracultural discrimination for being a brown artist by my own family and community, then no wonder there are so many brown artists that haven't taken that step in actually making this their career, because they're going through all of the same turmoil that I went through with my family. And so I think that there are a lot of people out there, but I think that it's really hard to engage in artistic expression when you're born into a culture that hinders just your basic need to express in general. I mean, if kids can't even express their opinions at the dinner table, then how do we expect them to engage within more sophisticated forms of expression like the arts? Or just doing anything, like following their own life path rather than what their parents dictate for them. So I think that there are a lot of conversations to be had, and that's why brown paint was created. It was created out of my frustration for there not being enough people like me out there, brown artists doing the thing, and then also affecting representation. So Brown Paint is a podcast, and it's also an Instagram and a YouTube so far. I do want to expand it across all platforms, but at the moment, Instagram, podcasts, and YouTube podcasts, it's on Spotify and Apple, and I interview all sorts of brown creatives from across the world, and we talk all things art and culture. So you don't even have to be a brown artist, but a lot of people have just come on and we've talked about just cultural issues and traditional mindsets that need to be changed. And it's all about healing and changing our culture through art or through artists.
Right. So, when we spoke about brown paint earlier, when we connected, you said that you're really focusing on intracultural healing. When you say that, what do you exactly mean?
So intracultural is basically within the culture. So issues within the culture, things that we can fix as a community and as a culture, versus thinking about, for example, racism is something that's intercultural. It's how cultures as wholes interact with each other, right? Versus I'm just focused on what South Asian culture is and how we can repaint that narrative, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I think that a lot of the issues that are being talked about today, which is awesome, it's awesome. It's great that racism and colorism, all these things are being addressed, but it's all to do with how cultures externally interact with each other. Whereas I felt that there was a gap in the market in terms of there was so many things that needed to be addressed first and foremost within our own culture that we can take personal responsibility for and heal, and that would actually inevitably fix the external cultural issues that needed to be like honed in on first. And that's what I'm really focused on in Brown Paint, talking about things that go on within the culture. For example, misogyny within South Asian communities, like intergenerational trauma, things like environmental work, and sex education. The two genders even interacting with each other is like a huge thing. And relationship with your parents, all these kind of things are like intracultural issues that if we solve them, I truly believe representation, racism, like it's a fast stretch to think about it now, but I think that all these external factors will sort of start to heal themselves if we can heal ourselves as a culture.
So, I mean, when you talk about intracultural issues, do you believe that the generation that we are in, we might be better at maybe, handling our children? I mean, do you think it might be a little better, if not like a lot, maybe a fraction of it better than what our parents or the previous generation were like?
100%. I do think that time heals all. I definitely think that there's a huge factor of it being a time thing, that, we're still recovering from this post-colonial trauma, and that's why our culture is really rigid and quite, but I do think that I get worried because, yes, I do think that time will, and it has to heal the majority of these issues to a certain extent. But the reality is, when I look around at people within my culture and people my age, especially, I see them repeating the same sort of negative patterns that their parents repeat. And it's really tough because we come from a culture that is indoctrination heavy. I find that, like, from the minute we're born, our parents are kind of just spewing us whatever rhetoric, and we tend to just kind of go by that. And the cycle of trauma never ends. And I think that if you look at our culture compared to other different cultures, I think that our trauma cycles are kind of longer than other people. Like, I think that our culture is taking longer than other cultures to heal from its post-colonial trauma and to kind of break those family trauma cycles, if that makes sense. And so I do think that that's why there's this huge empowerment, this brown people empowerment thing that's happening. The rise of like my page, your page, shows on Netflix such as what is it? Never Have I
And Never Have I Ever, I think that's the one.
Yeah, Never Have I Ever. That's the one.
Yeah.
Things like that. I think that there's a reason why this push is happening now, and it's because our culture isn't changing or shifting nearly as fast as it should be. So yes, time will heal, but I definitely think there's a market and a necessity to push South Asian empowerment and to push South Asian healing.
So, even when you watch movies, or even today, I mean, you see when they depict Indians or, South Asians per se, they have this typical way of dressing up, hairstyle, maybe the way they talk, even if they're born in Australia for that matter. But their depiction on screen has always been very, very ancient. Like, as if we wear Indian attire even in Australia? Or does that really happen? Have you seen those smaller communities which are still like so knit to the ground, like to the roots? They still don't really change a lot of things, or they do not allow their kids to change a lot of things. I mean, you have to wear this, you have to tie up your hair, you have to eat only, at home, or come back by 7. I mean, that's across cultures. But there are some things that are really brown. I mean, does that still exist?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And you wouldn't think that it would exist in Australia, but I find that actually the people that have migrated to Western countries tend to be, I dare say it, more traditional than people in India like yourself, because they've migrated and in their head, they're still in 1970. So they've migrated in 1970 and then they've come here, and culturally their brain has stuck in 1970. So whilst their friends back at home have like grown up and changed with the times and changed with the political climate of what's been happening in India, for example, they're still here clinging on to their fixed idea of what home was, this nostalgic idea of what home was. And so they kind of like really cling on to the traditionalism because they're clinging on to their sense of home and community and stuff like that. And so I find that like maybe that's the reason why these stereotypical communities do exist in within diasporas, because they're clinging on to this sense of, or memory of what home was. And that's why they keep just like, they're very tight-knit, cliquey communities. They kind of don't really talk to any other ethnicity. They kind of just marinate in their own soup because they're sort of, yeah, they're stuck in this idea of what India was when they moved, if that makes
Right.
sense. So I
Yes,
think that,
yes,
yeah, and
yes.
it's sad, but it really does exist. And people think that, brown people move abroad and they, I don't know, like, yeah, they really don't make a shift, if that makes sense. I mean, I'm sure like definitely people do, but yeah, what you said is completely correct.
I've seen a lot of like Indians being way more modern. They're like, because we follow the
Oh yeah.
Western culture so much. Like in India, if you see, we have moved way ahead. Like the way we dress, the way we talk, the emphasis on English, maybe because of job opportunities being available. I mean, it makes no sense to know Hindi when you're not going to actually get any jobs because of it. But when you go to, let's say, Malaysia or Australia, I've seen a lot of people there will speak like pure Tamil, for example. There are a lot of the Tamil community is like huge there. So in that sense, the emphasis of westernization is way too much on ground here in India compared to there. So do you believe that maybe the brown people in other countries think that because they're minority, they have to be together? Does that sense really get them to do it?
I think so. I think that, yeah, maybe it's that whole security, like need for security kind of migrant mentality that sort of keeps them in their own bubbles, for sure. And yeah, I definitely think that there's a sense of, I think it comes from a sense of fear or a sense of coming into an unknown place. That's all something we need to empathize with as well, because that must be really tough and really difficult, especially if you're not in English speaking, coming into an English speaking country and having to start afresh and not knowing anyone. So then you kind of end up just meeting your fellow Indian people and then sticking with them because, yeah, you're scared to venture out because it's a new territory and you don't know anyone, you don't know how it works here. Things are so different here. So you also can't blame them as well. It's so hard. It's so hard. It's such a hard topic. It's such a hard conversation, but it's so
So,
important that we're having.
out of context, do you have like a snake coming into your backyard? Do you have a kangaroo just like peeking into your window ever?
That's hilarious. Okay, I don't think I've ever seen a snake ever. And I
Never
go camping
ever.
a lot. No, I don't think I've ever, I think I
Not
saw
even
like
a
one.
tarantula, really.
Oh, we see spiders a lot. Like there's always spiders everywhere in the house. Snakes, no. I think maybe I'm just lucky. I don't know. I really haven't ever seen a snake, and I camp in some really proper bushy places, and I hike, and I've never come across a snake for some reason. Spiders, yes. Kangaroos, yeah. We live in kind of the outer suburbs, sort of closer to the country. So in our parks and things, there are just kangaroos everywhere, especially at dusk and dawn. So that's kind of normal, yeah. But definitely not if you're in the city. So most people, like you might know, probably live more closer to the city. They're probably, it's very easy to like never see a kangaroo in your life. But if you live in the outer suburbs, for sure, kangaroos are everywhere.
So another question about animals. I love animals. So that, I mean, I can go on and on about it. But koalas, I've heard they're a little aggressive. They look cute. They're cute. They sleep a lot. They eat a lot, but they're aggressive. Is that true?
Yeah, I've had that too. I don't know. I've never actually seen a wild koala. There are supposed to be some near where I live in this park, and everyone's told me they've seen koalas there, but again, I've never myself come across koalas there or snakes. So I'm very upset about that. And I wouldn't be able to tell you, no, I'm not sure, but I have heard that as well. So
How about emus? I mean, do you see any emus around?
yeah, they're pretty much everywhere too. Well, not as common as kangaroos, but definitely if you go out further country, they're kind of everywhere. And they're very I don't know, emus, yeah, they're kind of like everywhere, I think. Yeah. And they steal your food sometimes, which is lovely. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think we've, you know, we've connected all the dots when it comes to knowing you, Adhya, and thank you so much
Oh,
for your
great.
time today. And we are hoping to have you back again because I'm sure that, you know, you're going to go a long way and there will be a lot of things to know in a while from now. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really love talking to you. You are such a beautiful, open person. And thank you for receiving everything that I've said. We definitely have to do a podcast like this on brown paint as well. So I'm really looking
Perfect. I would love to. Thank you.
Thank you so much.